Hello, this is Varun Gumri, and you're listening to the Stars and Startups podcast. I bring you another exciting podcast from the startup world. In India, there's probably a large opportunity for pretty much any product. The total addressable market is large enough for even niche products to work if they have a strong value proposition and a good product. Today, I speak with Rajan Bajaj, the founder of SlicePay, a startup that caters to the first time job seekers, targeting 5 million first time credit card users every year who have little access to credit products designed specifically for them. We chat about India's first payment card startup and what young Indians are spending on. Don't forget to take a moment to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you're listening to this podcast. The best way, though, is to sign up for a weekly newsletter via our Substack. The link is available in show notes. Let's say hi to Rajan. Hey Rajan, welcome to the show.
Hey Varun, thanks for having me here. I'm doing great. By the way, it's Slice now. We removed the pay sometime in last year, and
Okay.
it's just Slice now. A fresh, exciting product for the youth of the country, which they really love using. And it's in the financial services space, which is traditionally considered boring, but it's not so boring anymore.
So, are you saying they don't have to pay back? That's why you're just calling it Slice?
Why would they not have to pay back because you're calling it Slice?
I don't know. It was called Slice Pay.
No, so pay was for actually making the payments at the merchant and
Yeah,
not like repaying back. You still have to repay back because
that's required, right?
that is how you build your credit history. If you do not do that, then that's a problem because 8 years later, when you want to get a house loan, you'll have a poorer credit history.
Hmm. You know, during COVID, credit companies have had an extremely hard time, primarily because of the moratorium and repayments not happening easily or being deferred. And most companies, especially if you're giving credit, they need to manage cash flow, right? It doesn't mean that your cost is any lower. There's no way for you to identify if someone's going to pay back or not. So you can't differentiate between a good customer and a bad customer and who to follow up with or who to kind of blacklist. And then the team starts calling up and sending friendly reminders on repayment. How has it been for you guys?
COVID has been a very different experience from what we were used to in the last 4 years. I think as a customer, it is like a forcing factor for you. Whatever you were already thinking, now you're thinking about it. Even harder. You have more time at your hand. So if you're thinking about moving out of traditional financial institutions, or if you're not happy with a certain experience, now you're thinking more about that, and that forcing factor is making you change the way you operate, like we have seen in edtech, we have seen in some of the other e-commerce companies where people are now jumping to the opportunity of buying products on in e-commerce or
Hmm.
doing edtech. It has become like that forcing function. You would have acquired those customers over 12 months. Now you're suddenly acquiring those customers in 3 months. For a business in credit, like you rightly said, there's that impact of moratorium. You need to manage your cash flows. Then there's this other side also, which happens, which is consumption is not there. While some businesses are seeing advantage of consumption, rising, like in edtech or e-commerce. Overall, as a economy, we just saw, right, our economy was down 20-23%. So that consumption went down at a overall level, and because
Hmm.
we are serving all the use cases of a customer, our
Right.
card is accepted at 5 million plus merchants in the country. So our volumes go down. So while there's this impact of moratorium, but because your volumes are also going down temporarily during that period, now it's again back to where it was. But temporarily for the 6 months period, it was down. So it sort of was getting balanced by itself.
So you're saying the consumptions dropped and repayments were not happening. So it kind of got managed because you were working with the same amount of capital that needs to go get revolved, so to speak, uh, on a
Exactly.
card base, right?
Exactly. So
Um,
I would not say that cash flow wise it was a challenge for the companies because
hmm,
actually consumption was lower compared to the repayments. Repayments still only limited number of customers were choosing moratorium. We had only 15% of our customers choosing moratorium and opting for moratorium.
Right.
which is not a lot, right? Eventually, the customers are coming and repaying back to you, and that much capital you already had. But the consumption went down by even more number. In April, it was down by almost 70%, and then in May, it was down by still 45-50%. So it was much worse on the consumption side itself compared to the repayment side.
You're in the front seat when it comes to understanding how young people spend, right?
We are.
And what are people spending on, especially during COVID? And are they spending a lot of money on alcohol? Is that the first purchase they do every month?
It's the same thing, man. What you and I are doing. Young people are not very different. I mean, we are young, right? We are not that.
I'm glad you're calling me young, because I feel old compared to you, at least. What do you like? You graduated from IIT.
But you still fit in. You still fit in millennials, right? As a segment.
I don't think so. I don't seem like a millennial, or I don't feel like a millennial.
Yeah. These days, everyone is under the age of 40 is millennial, and then we have this large segment of 20 to 40, which is millennial, and people use that term for everyone now. So every young customer is a millennial, but the guys who got born in 2001 and they're like, I'm 19, but I'm not a millennial. No one is listening to that guy. You are a millennial.
Wait, tell me something. You graduated in 2014, right?
I did. Yes.
And so you are definitely part of this segment. 5 years into, 6 years into working, and you started the first company within a year of graduating.
Yes.
You started out at Flipkart for a few months and then started this. What was it like to do that? Because now you're 5 years in the business. You probably picked up your MBA along the way, doing things, right? How has the journey been in this 5 years? What has helped you?
Let me tell you about my background. So before I went to college for my engineering, I was, I spent most of my childhood in Rajasthan. Okay. I was in this small city called Alwar, and I did most of my schooling there. I was, I think, one of the
It's a beautiful city.
People. Oh, you have been there?
Of course, near Siriska, right?
Yes, Siriska is part of Alwar. So Siriska is that wildlife sanctuary which is very popular in that part of the country, and it is in Alwar.
Have you ever seen any tigers there?
Fun fact, I went to Siriska for the first time when I was in college. I did not go to Siriska before that growing up in Alwar. No, by the time I went to Siriska, there were no tigers there.
Okay, so you're right. There are no tigers there, right? Because I didn't see anything when I went.
No, so they were there, but then they got extinct, and it became a issue. So now, yes,
it's back.
So I grew up there, and I was probably I was the first one in my locality and my geography of that small city to go for nationals from our school for basketball. I did that. I used to play too many sports when I was growing up. My parents encouraged me to do that. We lost in the semi-finals, and that was it. I finished my schooling, went to IIT Kharagpur for my engineering, and soon after that, I started working in Flipkart. I was working in a great team there. This was a time when Flipkart was growing at the fastest pace in the country at that scale. It was the fastest growing startup in this country, and I was working right at the center in the product team who was making these product innovations happen at that time. So I loved my time there, but I felt that I need to start up. I had that feeling right from my college days. I used to think, actually, when I was in college, why would someone pay me for working on anything? I don't know anything, and I always used to think probably I'll have to start my own business at some point of time, because that doesn't make sense to work for someone and then get paid for it. I mean, why would someone pay me? So it was there somewhere in my mind, and Flipkart happened. I met with these really smart people, learned more about startups and how to go about it, and then moved out within 10-11 months. Started up a business called Mesh, which was in the rental space. That did not work out. We were doing that for about 9-10 months. Did 3-4 pivots in that, and then we transitioned to what is today's Slice.
Understood. What was that insight that you wanted to go solve? Because I know Slice has gone through many different, um, you know,
Avatars.
phases. Yeah, yeah. So it started out being different things, and today it's completely different from when you started out.
Yeah, like I said, my interest was to start a business of my own. That was my fundamental motivation,
Okay.
and wherever I read and whatever I understood, it felt natural to start something that is your own problem. So while I was looking for the problems that I am facing in my life, and initially rental was a problem. You're moving to a city and you don't know how long you're going to stay here. You want to have many experiences, but you don't have enough money. So I wanted to play a PlayStation game on a weekend, but I don't want to purchase it because I'm not a avid PlayStation gamer. But there's no way I can play it easily. I need to borrow it. I need to get to my friend's house and find out who has that and find out how to get that particular game. So we initially thought about having this platform where you can rent your let's say PlayStation, and I can rent my bicycle. I can get your DSLR, and life is much more fun over the weekends, and we can do a lot of things. But then we realized that the market is not that large. People are not that comfortable sharing their products. Pivoted into cars and bikes rental for some time. We were the second largest car rental product at that time, but then realized there are a lot of issues in scaling this business up, and we'll
This
probably not
was
be the
this
right
was the
fit.
peak. This was the peak of the sharing economy, right? There was this term of sharing economy, and people want to share everything. Uh, I think it started with Uber and Ola coming forward, and Uber uncovering Uber X, right? That was their car sharing platform in a way, and everybody wanted to do something in sharing. Was there a hype that led you to that, saying, you know what, maybe there's value here and this is a market we'll go after?
I don't think so. So from my college, in my second year, I was very interested in sharing economy. I purchased this book from Lisa Gansky, she was the pioneer in sharing economy at that time, and I was reading about that from my college. Initially, got the idea of starting something
Mm.
like Ola Share and Uber Share when I was in second year on my internship in Gurgaon, and I used to take these shared rides from where I was staying to Ifko Chowk, which is a central place
Yeah.
in Gurgaon, and then go other places from there. And I felt that there are so many people moving around, going. Why can't I sit in some car and I have to go in the shared ride? At that time, I was I think 18, and this is 2002. So I've been obsessed about sharing economy from that time.
Mm.
And when I again faced that problem, I felt that this is my calling, and need to do something about it. And then tried many of these things. We just did not stop at. We did not stop at what came to the mind initially as a problem. If it was not working out, kept pivoting, and finally arrived at something that was working out. So actually, towards the end of Mesh, we were doing it's very interesting. We were doing a furniture renting product. Within a span of 6-7 months, we started with you can get gaming console, and now we were renting you furniture. Like you can get a bed in your house, and you can get a washing machine and TV in your house, and pay it over every month, and you can actually end
Right,
up owning it if you pay enough.
right, right.
And then we realized that this is a logistical problem, and this
Nightmare.
is a very different business altogether than what we had thought, and we are not probably the right fit for this business. So then we moved on, and then that's when Slice happened.
So what are millennials paying for? Uh, I really want to dig into this because I'm always curious, right? Because when you look at consumption, and we're saying that uh, the young first time employees are the ones who will drive future growth, right? Because they're trying to earn, making good money, they get credit or anything, and they start consuming, and this is good for everybody, right? So during lockdown, what is kind of some of the trends that you've seen with this kind of data?
Hmm. So usually customers do about 8 to 10 transactions in a month using Slice card. and 60% of them go in an offline mode. So you're either paying at a restaurant or
Right.
a retailer in the offline world. That took a big hit in the months of April and May.
Mm.
And what happened is people started spending more on groceries, which were online, and people started spending more on medicines, which is again you're getting through an online delivery. So we saw a sharp rise in these two categories, and then by August we saw a very sharp rise in e-commerce.
Mm.
I think it grew by almost 300% for our segment. So those retail transactions that are happening because people are not going out or they're staying at their home
Right.
now suddenly happening through e-commerce companies, and there was a overall 200% 250% increase there that we were seeing on a daily basis.
I think it's common across the board, right? In that case, because I think grocery was
Exactly.
probably the biggest expense, right? So young or old, you're I think getting to spend the same thing. What do you spend on otherwise, right? Uh,
I mean, exactly right. That's what I was saying. I mean, these customers are not any different than all of us. This is a 22.5-year-old guy. What may be different is this guy is not that they don't have that much capital to buy probably a car at this point of time,
mm,
so they will not
mm,
make those kind of spends.
right.
Their spends will start from that Maslow's hierarchy of the lowest ones, and they'll still want to buy insurance, and they'll still want to buy this regular e-commerce products which makes them feel safe and which are basic necessity in their life, but they'll probably not buy a trip to Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur. I
Yeah.
mean, they will not do that right now, and that is where some of the difference comes. So, which changed with COVID, right? You were not traveling as much, so
Right.
that did not have that much impact on our segment
Mm,
because
mm,
while they were spending on traveling, but this was more of a local travel and constitutes lower spends for them compared to the basic necessities that they had, and which is the same. You and me will spend on the same things. Actually, for me, my credit card bill was actually negative in the month of April, and that was because I had a refund from previous month which was coming in
okay.
April, and I did not have to pay for April, and I think in May also it was negative.
When you look at this audience, what I've heard is that young people save for the next trip, right? They are very conscious about how much they spend. They budget. They put aside money, and they pool in that money at the end of the day with their partners or whoever, and then buy a trip to Egypt or Greece. I think that's probably the popular thing with the young kids these days. Um, does Slice get involved in any of those things? Actually, what is Slice?
Slice is a pay later line that comes for a 18 to 30-year-old guy. So we operate in the fastest growing segment of this country. These are these 18 to 30-year-old millennials and Gen Z, which is the economic wave of this country. This is the segment that takes us to $5 trillion GDP. This is the socio-economic fabric, of this country. And when these people grow up, and as they are growing up, they have very different ideas of how culturally we should exist. With the access of internet and the kind of information that they have, they are thinking more than any other generation about their purpose.
Right.
Where do they fit in this world culturally? And they have different ideas of how their banking institutions, financial institutions should also work. That is where we come in. The customers that we serve, they are looking for not just boring vanilla product that is not that transparent and has
Mm-hmm.
hidden charges for them. They want much more. They want a very transparent product. They want simplicity when they're using that kind of product, and they want fun and engaging product as well. So for them, it's not just about doing boring old transactions. It's about doing all these things because they see a sense of community when they are using a credit card for that matter, or a pay
Right.
later line with what Slice provides. So Slice provides them with that pay later line today. It gives them a credit limit to shop
Right.
at all the 5 million merchants that accept our Visa card or RuPay card. But we are much more than that for our customers. It's a starting point where the customers are doing payments using Slice, but they're culturally getting connected to this. They're feeling that part of the community because of the content that we share with them, and the messaging that drives the whole Slice community, and which will eventually make them also want to do payments, all sort of payments through us, do all sort of banking through us, and so on and so forth.
So it's a credit card, and the difference between this credit card and any other credit card that a bank would give them uh, is that the bank won't give them a card.
Yeah. So there are multiple problems. We have built a pay later line for the customer with a RuPay card and a Visa card. It's
Okay.
not like a traditional credit card.
Okay.
It's not even a credit card actually. It's a pay later line which comes in the app, and then it's
Okay.
backed by a PPI, RuPay or Visa card,
Got
which
it.
can combine that line with the card, and then you can spend it anywhere. So customer definitely has the problem of access, but they also have problem of simplicity. They do not understand these products many times, and they end up paying high charges. Like for example, minimum due amount as a concept, it's very confusing for a young customer.
Hmm.
And as a young customer, many times when you start using a credit card kind of product, you end up paying that minimum due amount, and then you have this hefty charge at the end of the month in your
Right.
statement, and you don't realize because
Right.
it's written as some finance charge, some fancy term, and you'll feel like, okay, this must be something that I've done, and after 3 months, 4 months, you'll realize that, and then you'll hate this experience.
Right.
And because people now have so much information, so much access to information, they don't want to get into these kind of experiences. Anyways, when they realize that they are getting into these kind of experiences and they're paying these charges, it's not a very long-term relationship, which is what we need to understand. And as companies, people building companies for youngsters, we need to make sure of.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
that is something that Slice provides to our customers. It's highly transparent. You'll never get charged till the time you accept it, and everything is
Okay.
upfront. We don't have any minimum due amount concept also. The card is absolutely free of cost. There's no annual charge, hidden charge, no
Okay.
upfront charges, and then you pay back at the end of the month. You don't have to pay anything extra.
The way you make money is on a transaction. So when they swipe it or use it somewhere, you get to make some revenue, right? That's a typical card business way it functions, I guess.
There are three parts to our business. One is acquisition, which is like payments or deposit bank accounts and all that. We don't have deposit bank account today, but we have payments. So customers are coming to do their regular payments. Customers are spending on Swiggy and Zomato and Uber, Ola, and these kind of regular places where everyone spends, and they want to do that. This is one of the best ways for them to do that in India.
Okay.
Then we have monetization. People take credit. They end up converting some of their transactions into an EMI.
Right.
And through that, we monetize. We have merchant partnerships through which we give no cost EMI offers to our customers, where merchants are paying us commission, but the customer is not paying anything. So we monetize there. Then on every card transaction, we earn something, we monetize there. So then there's this whole monetization layer, and insurance is something that will come eventually. Investment is something that will come, and shopping, different kind of shopping experience for our community, like group buying, will come in that whole monetization piece. And then there's loyalty and community through which we retain the customers. So those reward points that you get, which are very confusing right now to understand, by the way, for most of the young people, and the experience of also understanding those reward points is not that great. So then we have this loyalty product through which we reward our customers and make sure that they are retaining with us, and we build that community which they want to be a part of, and they really see it as a different product in all the noise that we live in. The world is so noisy right now, that you have all these different products which are telling you different things, but you want to transact with products that you really believe in, and that you believe that they believe in you. For example, when you go to a bank website, they will not say that they believe in you. They will tell you that you can get home loan at 8.5% and car loan at 12-13%. When you come to Slice, we will actually tell you that we believe in you as that youngster who has that drive and ambition. We believe you will fly, and that is the kind of belief that we have in you, and that is what you want to do. Want in your life. Those are the kind of companies that you want in your life. You want to transact with Apple, you want to transact with Tesla and Nike, and not the boring products, especially the young people, because they have that sense of purpose in their lives.
When do they show up to Slice? Like, how do they, they say, okay, you know what, I want a 15,000 rupee credit limit because, it helps me manage my finances better. And they just download your app and get started.
That's pretty much it. Yes. So you come to the app, you complete your profile, and within 24 hours, usually you get approved or you are in a waiting list. So we have 250,000 customers now who are approved, and they are Slice members and they are using us. And we have 500,000 users who came and applied and now are in a waiting list. And once you get approved, once you get the card with you, and you can start transacting anywhere.
How does this approval process work if they're now on a waiting list? Does it mean they're not credit worthy? You don't believe they're credit worthy, or you're saying that we will track your, your progress in some other way, and then we will give you a card? What's the other line or an account?
Yeah. So as a financial institution, we have certain limitations, like geography that we are present in. We have certain criteria, like age is one of the criteria for us. So some people will get cut off immediately because we haven't expanded to some segments. It's not about
like what segments should that be? Beyond 30?
We are not present in some tier 3 cities. Yes, beyond 30, we'll have some criteria where you will not get accepted today. We want to serve you eventually, but today we are choosing not to serve you because we have limited, growth in mind. We have a limited capital with us, and we know the kind of customers we want to go after with that capital. And that is what we are doing today. That is why other customers who also want to get that Slice experience are not able to come in today. But what we do is we keep expanding our criteria, we keep expanding geographies also over time. So the waiting list also keeps getting reconsidered. It's not like you'll never be able to become part of Slice. It's just that today you're not there. And in 6 months' time, usually we'll reconsider you and put you back in the membership, or we will tell you to apply again later.
I understand the geographical criteria because I think that's geography is a huge impact on collections, right? Because you need to have some process you need to follow, and you can't open up a city. Do you guys do an in-person verification? Is that a thing that is required?
That depends on the KYC of the customer. So some customers who have Aadhaar XML based KYC, there is not needed. Some customer it is needed. And yes, the collections point is very valid there again. Unlike a e-commerce company, we cannot start a location and then shut down that location.
Right.
Once we have started a location, people have outstanding bills with us, and there's no way we can shut down the location without having a large impact on the losses. It's very important for us to carefully choose the locations that we want to be present in.
I understand the financial, like the banks and all these other institutions aren't taking much notice, right? I mean, if you remember, I remember in the banks, and we were talking to another founder of Neo, Vinay Bagri. He talked about just going after the salary accounts, right? Now in a salary account, the reality is that you get to know the employee salary on day one, right? If you're because salary accounts get opened typically for new accounts. So every new employee that gets added, and they're typically first time in the workforce, it's very easy for them to decide what kind of financial products to give them. Yes, the banks don't do a great job, and they use different proxies to identify which customer to go after, right? In that scenario, are we saying that even then the good customers get left out, and that's where Slice comes in and solves for it?
We have multiple segments. We also are going after a first jobber, we are going after a second jobber, we also have freelancers, we also have college students. So we go after all these segments because we see that there is a gap there. And the team is able to understand the problem of this segment the most. We are a young team. So this is a segment that we really relate to a lot. and we are able to understand the needs of this customer more than anyone. Like I said, when we were starting up, we were trying to solve our own problem. Even today, why we are not doing a product for a customer above, let's say, 35 or 33, is that we think that we are probably not the best product for them. It's still going to take us time to solve the needs of this particular audience, which we really understand. So let's not try to do too many things for different segments, and let's try to win the love of this audience completely. Our NPS today is above 70. That is the reason 70% of our customers today are actually coming through a customer's referral. We don't have to spend anything to get these customers. They're coming from the referral of this customer, this friend of theirs who's already on Slice. So you want to improve those kind of things first, and then get to other segments. And this is a segment which we understand the most. That's why just want to do other things for this segment. So today we are doing a card, but we see that as a vertical. We'll do a deposit account for this customer, insurance for this customer, investment for this customer. And then as this customer is growing, we will evolve with them. We'll be the best card for them throughout their segments as they grow. When they become from that 29 to 32, we'll still remain the best card for them. Our initial inspiration of building a product like this came from Capital One, who has done a phenomenal job in the US and Canada and many of the North American regions with a product for different segments, which the banks at that time in US were not focusing on. Right. So, in fact, some of our early team members are from Capital One, and we have built on that culture. We borrowed some of the best processes and policies from there and built on that culture.
I got my first $300 credit card from Capital One, so I know what you're talking about.
And did you use that card? Did you use that card for many years after that?
Oh, of course. I mean, I wasn't in the US for that long, but yes, I did use it.
So till the time you were in US, you were using that card?
Yeah, of course. I mean, that was my first credit card and also my last credit card.
That's a very interesting product, insight, for many of us when we started up. That once a customer start using this product, they use it for like 8 years, 10 years, and the first card becomes, a card that they want to use throughout, as long as you can keep upgrading and keep providing them with a very good experience.
Yeah, I think you're spot on, right? Because in banking services, I worked at HDFC Bank for a while. And one of the most important parts about banking is that the moment you acquire a customer, right? The moment you bring in a customer and that's their first bank account or their first card or any of that, if it's their first, and you're able to get them to do all the transactions you want them to do, then they don't want to move, right? Because it's not like another bank or another financial service is going to do something vastly different, right? Now, reason a person buys an Amex card or gets an Amex card, actually they buy because they pay an annual fee or something, is because it gives them some value, right? I don't know if it's self-esteem or whatever it is, puts them in a different league. It's more about that. It's more about that experience and the feeling. But in terms of a card itself, you're only going to get additional cards because it gives you something in return. But chances are they'll never switch to that card if it doesn't actually add anything to their lives. They will just keep what is status quo and never move on, to be honest. So HDFC in India has also been my first and only card for a long time. I had hundreds of cards after that, like SBI and HSBC, StanChart, you name it. I've got cards from every bank, but I never actually moved on because my credit card was linked to my HDFC bank account, and it was just convenient for me, right? It never became a hassle. So one piece of advice for you is, maybe you want to bring them in, and like you said, you're probably creating savings accounts and other things. Chances are you're going to keep them for life if you get into those two aspects, right? Where does your money reside and where you transact? Because, if they're using the credit period, that becomes a habit. And I think that's important as well. So those two are your main aspects. So speaking of which, are you going to get into banking? You said you're going to launch other products, but I think you're probably in a better position to say launch a savings account or any of those financial products. Is that in the pipeline?
Yeah. So with UPI in India, I think many of these banking problems at least have gotten solved. The reason you were paying for your credit card from your bank account is because they were linked. But now you don't necessarily need that linking to happen. With UPI, every well-made product becomes like a bank account. So our customers are
Right.
using our app to pay to us, and it's faster than using a bank account to make the payment. So the next
Right.
product that we will do for our waitlisted customers at least to provide them a UPI from Slice,
Sure.
and through that they can scan any QR code and start paying through UPI, and they build some history with us, and because of that history they can then start using Slice, the whole
Card.
experience, become a Slice member, and that's important for them because they want to get that membership. Some of them do not have a history with us, some of them do not have the right geographical presence with us, but this information, this extra set of information gives us the confidence to go after these customers and make them member first life. And then we'll roll out the same product for our customer. And like you said, what a bank account was solving for you is, it was maintaining both the type of transactions at the same
Right.
place and creating that behavior. But the same thing can now be achieved with UPI, with both the debit product and credit product being at the same place for you.
Hmm.
You can have all your transaction at a single place and manage your money very well, manage your payments very well.
Yep.
That is what we intend to do as a next product.
I mean, it's a great single interface, right? It makes
Yeah.
sense. I think today, and single interface is extremely important, right? Because you want to know what your debits and credits are, as you normally would. And typically, it's in two different locations. Or if you have a salary account additionally and your savings account, there's three different locations, or more if you have more cards, right? And you're managing your points very well. You probably have to go into different interfaces. But I think the account aggregator, which is something that's in the works, and a lot of people have started using, will probably solve for a lot of those things, right? Because all you're saying is that, hey, you can just retain the same app, nothing changes, and you can actually have the full history of all your transactions for the month, which I think is extremely powerful in itself as well. Speaking about your UPI movement, I think it's extremely smart, right? Because what you're saying is that if we can't underwrite somebody and they've actually downloaded the app and applied for, a Slice, credit line, and we can't service them, I think it's phenomenal that now you're able to at least bring them on as a customer. Well, not for the credit product, but you're giving them something for them to prove that they are worthy of getting a card. And I think that's really cool because now you're getting them used to the product in whatever way or form, and they can continuously figure out when they want to reapply for, or you can even show them, right? You just show them a notification saying, hey,
Yeah.
now you've hit the threshold we are expecting, and hence we welcome you to the Slice family, right?
Yeah, and that is the Indian way of doing neo banking. If you look at the neo banks across the world, they started for a particular use case. Brazil, like I said, it started because there was this huge banking problem. Banks were not behaving properly with the customers. Uh, in UK, it started because people had problem doing payments. When they're going out doing forex transaction, they're ending up paying high fees for that. And in general,
Right.
payments are not very convenient. But in India, payments are super convenient with UPI now. So the
Yep.
natural neo banking product in India is a UPI product. And then you build other things on top of that, which is what PhonePe did very well, Google Pay did very well. But then these are massive products, serving an 80-year-old guy also and a 18-year-old guy also. And because of that, their experience has to be very average and very boring and very transactional. But a young person again is looking for that simplicity and ease of use, but at the same time they are also looking for a very fun and engaging experience, which is what you have to offer to a young customer to create a neobank in India, uh, in a different way compared to how it happened in UK or Brazil or US, because this is our neobanking product.
You started Slice right after college, which we touched upon a little bit earlier. Uh, are there any resources, mentors that you kind of gathered to give you the kind of knowledge and support?
Lots of them. I mean, countless people. There are some of them in our cap table. I think those are best people to take advice from, because they also put in their own capital in the business, and their advice has a certain skin in the game. So I really value their feedback. And then internet, I think, has been very kind. All these places where we get all this advice today are amazing, and you really you feel that you're part of this large community of really smart people who have done that in the past and now they want to give back. So Twitter has been very useful in many aspects there.
How do you use Twitter? You just ping people, or it's about just following the right folks?
I think it's about creating some set of following list which is very useful to you. So you get to read only those things, and creating some lists that are very useful to you, and then you get to read something that you are very interested in. Like I am passionate about technology and finance and philosophy and sharing economy. So people who are talking about those things and who I admire, I want to learn from them. So getting that right set of people to talk to you, even though it's in a one to many way, but getting past that clutter of noise, all the posts that you don't want to see, and getting to that meaningful thing is very important. And that is where a lot of your time also gets spent today. As a youngster, again, this is one other problem that I deeply care about. You end up spending a lot of time, and your attention keeps getting hacked by all these different noises around you. So how do you get to that real thing that actually gives you happiness and actually gives you success also? The kind of success that you have for yourself. I mean, success is very subjective, but you want to have a certain success in life 5 years later, 10 years later. So what is it that can give you that happiness and success? That is, I think, a very important problem for all of us to think about and solve, for young people, especially because they are the future. But what has worked really well for me is using the weekends and pinging people and reaching out to them to talk about some specific problems that is on your mind and you're already thinking about it, and then you think that they will add a lot of value there, and you will value their advice because they're already in the cap table, or they're a very good uh, person in the industry that you admire, and that they will give it to you straight. So I keep doing that. I keep pinging people. Most of the people reply. Some people don't reply in that weekend, but then they'll reply by the next weekend, and that helps a lot.
And are you much of a reader? Any recommendations for folks who want to get some new skills? Are there any books you give as gifts to other founders?
I do. So there's this book by a very good Silicon Valley coach called Matt Mokri. Uh, it's called Great CEO Within, and that book has been tremendous for me in building various you know aspects and processes inside Slice. Many of the times you're thinking externally, you're thinking about your product, thinking about your strategy, but one of the most important things is your people and how you interact with them when you are within the company, and how that culture is shaping up. So this book really helped me in some of the tactical details of how to go about building your business when you're growing from a 25 member team to a 300 member team, which we are today. I probably got to know about this book pretty late, but now I give this book a lot to many people that I know and who are CEOs themselves. I got this book when we were already, I think, 70, 80 people, and I was facing some of those challenges. But after that, with the help of this book, some of those things we improved upon. And I would recommend anyone who is a CEO to read this book.
I'm gonna leave the link along with show notes, so I'll leave that for somebody to reference. Hey Rajan, this has been phenomenal. Thanks for the amazing conversation.
Thanks for having me here, Varun.